all their fans go to our golf courses and fill up all of our golf courses. You can't go golfing when they're here. And then they show up about the second or third inning, half crop.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right. Well, welcome to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today is Matt Acker. Matt, in this case, is the owner and the general manager of the Port Angeles Lefties, right?
I have been the general manager. Currently, am just the owner and helping with operations.
Okay.
I have a general manager now. Thank God.
Well, Matt, welcome. And why don't you give us the backstory? So the Lefties, my first question, why did you name them the Lefties? What was the motivation?
Well, when we were moving a team from Kitsap, and that was the Kitsap Blue Jackets, and we came up here to Port Angeles. We had a contest, and Sasquatch was a big one. We found out that name has been owned, and to do that was going to be really difficult, especially in baseball. The next one was the marmot, the Olympic marmot, which is a very popular little creature up here. As you drive up Hurricane Ridge, they come out and they yell at you, and it's kind of funny. And then I got a letter from the Marmot Clothing Company, which prints their name, Marmot, and they sell on the Olympic Peninsula because of the mountains. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I went to John Stanton's group and I asked them what can I do in this situation? And they said, well, you could, work with them and it could cost you, and it was a pretty big range of dollars. And at the time I was like, I'm not in that position to do that. So they told me that a name is not as important as your team colors, what your team's about, and your community efforts. If you can find a name that crosses, that's great, but it's not, the end of the world. So I was going to name the team the Pollies, as in Port Angeles Upper Left.
Okay.
And they did a test on that name and they said, nah. And then I came back with Pawas, Port Angeles, Washington. And they said no. Plus, no one from Squim or Forks is going to buy that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so I got frustrated and I said, well, I'm going to call them the Lefties, because that's like a common name. You can't do anything about that. It's just like calling your team Saturday. And they came back to me and said, Saturday's not a bad name. And they said, but Lefties is testing off the chart. And I was like, okay, well, that it is. So our mascot itself is a marmot, but our name is the Lefties. And what we found is left-handed people don't buy our stuff. Right-handed people buy for the one lefty they know in the family. And that actually worked out really well.
I'm left-handed. That's why I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah. It's hard to find left-handed stuff. As a kid, I wanted to golf. You know how hard it is to. Do you have any idea how hard it was to find left-handed golf clubs in the 1970s?
Yeah,
they didn't
I know
exist.
Some left-handed golfers, and it's very difficult.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I had no idea that was going to be the origin story of the Lefties. How cool is that? So let's go. If we can, let's talk about your ownership path. When did you wake up and decide you wanted to be a owner of a team in the West Coast League?
Oh man. I coached. That's what I did prior to for 14 years. And I really enjoyed my time with my kids when they were young. But when you're coaching, you have to be on the road all the time, and that was getting old. I didn't want to not be around my kids. I moved up the ladder rather quickly, so I was into that position where it was time to make the next step, which is travel the country and live in Lubbock and Fargo and all these different towns, and then to hopefully end up back in the Northwest, because that's where I wanted to be. And I just saw the time that I was going to miss from my kids, and some of the people that were my age that were doing that, they were gone for 280, 300 days out of the year, away
Yeah.
from their family, in hotel rooms. And that was just something I wasn't willing to do. I wanted to, families got a lot of entrepreneurship, and I started looking at different things that could keep me involved in the game of baseball that I didn't have a boss. And man, there's just not that many. If you think about it, there's really not. So I kind of set my sights on to be in that situation. I started up the Puget Sound League, PSCL baseball, and started doing camps and tournaments, and running my own collegiate league that was a minor league to the West Coast League. And right when I started to do that, I knew I wanted to own a West Coast League team. I just had to get that business in a position where I could, if a team that was viable came open, and I did. And that's that first summer in 2013, or 2012, I I saw the writing on the wall that I was going to be in a position. This is successful what I'm doing, and then I just needed to wait for a team to be that was available.
Hmm.
And the Kids at Blue Jackets became available in 2015, and
Okay.
I purchased them.
I
And
love
that's the
asking
long and short of it.
I love asking questions like this, like what went wrong? Cause I love to hear like like, I never would have thought about this, but share with us something about owning a baseball club that you weren't prepared for mentally. Like you were surprised by it.
Well, I knew the ins and outs of it. I knew where the revenue sources were. Uh, Dealing with staff, and finding those people. Um, I guess I wasn't anything was totally surprising to me, except for there's things that I didn't anticipate that I wouldn't enjoy.
Okay.
Um, I have no problem and enjoy going and talking to groups of people, so I guess one thing that I was surprised with, now that I think about it, I've spoken in front of thousands of people, as a guest speaker, for whatever, like all schools, small towns,
Hmm.
for various things. Been on a baseball field in front of thousands and thousands of people, but I never really been in the crowd. I've never really been in the crowd. I've been a spectator, gone to Seahawks games or Mariners games, but never a crowd. I've never been in a crowd in that position where they all knew who you were,
Oh,
rather than me speaking in front of them. Um, and
oh,
I don't
okay.
like it. I hate it.
Okay.
I hate it. If you're anonymous and sitting in the crowd is not it's fine. But when you're not anonymous and everybody knows who you are, and everybody has their good things, bad things, um, complaints, gripes, suggestions. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. So that was something I was like, oh, this is not fun.
Okay.
Um,
I would not have thought of it. I would not have
yeah,
thought of that. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
and it was something I had never experienced before either, and I didn't even anticipate it going into it.
Okay. Well, before we go into the lefties, I'm going to back up. You played baseball in college.
I did, yes.
Okay. So what's your when did you start getting involved in baseball as a kid, and what led you up to getting into coaching?
Well, my dad was a football coach, and he loved football, and I loved football. I played football and grew up on, a football field. After school, I'd go right to football practice and, tackle the dummies and, run water bottles out to people and dry footballs off, um, and I just really enjoyed the game of football. And I actually went to college to play football. Baseball was kind of like also an opportunity, and they said, we'd love for you to come play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I really enjoyed baseball a lot, 2 as a kid, my grandfather was a baseball player, and he barnstormed with Babe Ruth, and the story of our character Lefty um, is based on him, and we added a couple things to it, but really it was his story, um, and so that was something as a kid that I enjoyed, talking baseball with my grandfather and talking football with my father. But the one I lived around more was obviously football.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I got to the end, to junior senior year, I saw baseball changing a little bit because people were taking it a lot more serious as a player, and
Okay.
that I took it a little bit more with a football mentality. I'm gonna I'm gonna bring it every day. I'm gonna when kids are younger, and I want them to go out and have fun and have a great time, but I wasn't about the looseness and the hey, let's get Johnny a hit. Like if Johnny doesn't get a hit all year, I didn't care.
Okay.
That was it didn't mean that I didn't like Johnny. It was just that this game is hard,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to earn everything you get, and you got to scrap for it. And I like that mentality, which kind of came from probably the mixture of my grandfather and my father. So as I got older in the game, people were taking it a lot more serious, and not everybody wasn't hitting 700. So people are battling to and I like that the cream rising to the top. And so when I went to college, everybody was kind of in that mentality. And that was really enjoyable to me because I saw so many things that applied to life through the game of baseball. And so that also had to do with like my grandmother and my family in general about constantly arguing and discussing things and so that was kind of I saw how it applied. I also saw honestly how brutal football was at that next level. How injuries, the things that people had to do to perform, and I kind of decided, this is it applies. It's super football is very very entertaining, and there's some really good life skills you can learn from the game and camaraderie, but at that level, it's pretty intense, and it actually doesn't apply too much, in my opinion, to everyday life as baseball does, because those are gladiators, and they're doing something that most people can't do, and because of their human size and speed. So I didn't see it applying as much in life, and so that probably pushed me away from it and pushed me more towards baseball.
Okay.
And I just enjoyed that. So yeah, I mean, family upbringing and there's a lot of discussions, and baseball also is the slowest game to change. And I not necessarily wanted to change the game of baseball, but make an impact in people's lives because of how slow it changes. I thought that it was a good opportunity. It's been around forever, but it has a long way to go.
Okay.
And I thought I could make an impact.
All right. So 2 questions. Where'd you go to college?
I went to Central Washington University.
Go Wildcats.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I went as well. And
I went to Central. Yep.
Yeah, I went to Central. My freshman year was the best 6 years of my life. Yeah.
I was in college for a long time myself.
Just because you made a statement, I'm going to add, you said baseball is the slowest to change. Personal opinion, universal DH, are you in favor of it at the MLB level? You are?
Yes.
Why are you in favor of it?
I think that it's more exciting for fans. I think that we'll have longevity of pitchers. And I think that we can also have longevity of some really good hitters because of the DH rule. Playing that full schedule, 160 plus games, and that's a lot. Having a DH to rotate to give a guy a day off as a position is, I think, important. So I think that you're going to have some better players in the game longer because of it. On both sides, pitching and hitting.
I never thought about it from the pitching angle. To be honest with you, I never thought about that. That's interesting because I've always thought about it in the, let's say Nelson Cruz, the fact that he just signed with the Nationals.
Right.
lengthening his career by another season. I mean, he probably would have been signed by an American League team, but
Right.
now he's got more teams to choose from. That's kind of cool. All right.
Absolutely. But if you think about it, it's not pitchers just hitting in those games, but think about the hundreds and hundreds of hacks that you're taking a week, thousands a week. You don't need to, and that's wear and tear, especially when they're not always the same movements that you're making.
Right.
Even though there's
No.
a lot of similarities from the stretch position and hitting, but yeah, it's wear and tear, and they get hurt, and I think it's better for the game and for the fans. Because those good players, are going to stay in the league longer, but also the offense that is provided because of it.
Okay. So then after Central, what did you do after your time at Central?
Well, I mean, I finished school at the Evergreen State College because I got a coaching job at St. Martin's University.
All right.
And so I jumped the grad assistant, volunteer assistant, and I'm one of those guys that like to jump in the deep end. So I had opportunities to be grad assistants and volunteer assistants, but I went for a full assistant coaching job. And I couldn't finish my degree up at Central Washington because I needed to practicum and student teach over a longer period of time. So it was such a good opportunity that I couldn't finish the last piece I needed to be a special education teacher. What I did is I went and worked at Tumwater Middle School and was worked with special needs, but I didn't have to write IEPs and I didn't have my degree finished. But that was an experience too. I mean, that's what I thought. I thought I was going to be a teacher and a coach. I thought I was going to coach football and baseball and worked adaptive PE, and that's what I really wanted to do. Thought it was going to be, just great, everything I wanted. The coaching job at St. Martin's was unbelievable. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Working with middle school behavioral disabilities, because I was supposed to be adaptive physical education. Working with middle school behavioral disabilities, those people should be sainted because it is miserable.
I shouldn't laugh. Yes, I
hated it.
Okay.
It was a hard. The next year, we did really well. My first year at St. Martin's, and the next year, the recruit coordinator became a head coach. Because partially because I helped with recruiting, and he was good. Don't get me wrong, but so it kind of naturally progressed me into the recruit coordinator position. And so I was 23 years old as a recruit coordinator, which is really young. And all these other guys are like grad assistants that were my age, or trying to find that one gig, that one job. So, and we had the best season ever at St. Martin's that they've had in school history at that end of that year, which was great. And Sean, the guy that left as the recruit coordinator, was a really great instructor. So the year before, my first year, he let me do more recruiting, and then he would do more of my instruction things because we figured out that those were probably the better roles for the two of us. And we, had that great season, and I had applied for head jobs just to have the experience to go in and interview. And I was interviewed at Green River Community College, which had been a powerhouse in junior college baseball, and they had some big wigs that they offered the job to. Well, one of them, and he was using it as leverage. And then they came back to me and said, "All right, you were number 2. Would you be interested?" And I said yeah. And so I was a 24-year-old college head coach.
Wow. I mean, you could have snuck out on the field and played. No one would have noticed.
I had players on both places that were older than I was. I was the youngest college head coach in the country for the first 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So it was a long time. I was the youngest coach, but it was interesting experience. Probably too young. There's some things I couldn't relate to that I can relate to now. But I don't know. Jumping in the deep end has been kind of my thing.
Okay.
So that was, and during that time, I finished up my college at the Evergreen State College because I decided I didn't want to, work in special education, and I really wanted to, um, you know, follow my coaching career.
Okay. So what came after Green River then?
Well, I was at Green River for 10 years, and there's a lot that happened during that time. I coached. I kind of did the circuits. Especially when I first started, I was at the tail end of a lot of changing when it comes to how coaches are, paid. So my first year's contract was for $5,000, but I was a full-time coach. Yeah, so um, I I had to hustle. So I traveled the country for Cal Ripken because that was about the time Cal Ripken retired,
Uh-huh.
and so I did their camps because that they turned Bambino baseball. So it's Bambino Babe Ruth, senior Babe Ruth. They changed the name from Bambino to Cal Ripken. And
Okay.
so to do that, and him opening up the big facility in Aberdeen, Maryland, um, they did these camps across the country,
Okay.
and just decked kids out in Orioles kind of gear, which was the colors of Cal Ripken, and they had these big former major league stars that were the instructors, but then they brought us real coaches around to do the work, and I was part of that crew, and it was pretty cool to do that, and meet up with travel all over the place and do stuff with Billy Ripken or Cal or all the Mark Parent and all these guys, and so that was quite the experience, and I was with some just unbelievable coaches, so that they were really intelligent in what they did is they got these guys that were really really good instructors, and then they brought these former major league people that would come out and say, this is how you do something, and then they would go shake hands and talk to moms and dads, and then we'd go out there and teach them how to do it,
Right.
and to be in that group of people was uh, an honor. So
Okay.
I did that. I did basically camp circuits all over the place. I learned how to flip houses. It was,
Okay.
pre the crash, so I was flipping houses to make money.
Right.
Um, and so my wife and I moved like 10 times or something in 5 years because we live in it because,
Right.
um, and in 2004, I became the head coach for the Kitsap Blue Jackets in the West Coast League.
Okay.
So I started coaching in the league. So that was really my primary source of income because I get paid a lot more than I got paid in the NWAC. Not long after they made those rules, and to be considered full time, you needed to be paid appropriately. But
Something about labor law. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but there's a few years there of like my full time job was paying me $5,000 a year. It's not a bunch to you can't make it.
You can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
420
So
bucks a month. Yeah.
it was good though because I had learned a lot of things, and I had to try a lot of different things and stuff outside
Okay.
of baseball, and um, yeah, designing
Okay.
houses and stuff was interesting.
All right. So then you became the head coach there for the Blue Jackets, and then you ended up buying that team.
Not right after I was coaching.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But you ended up purchasing that team, and you moved them from the Kitsap area up to Port Angeles.
Correct.
How has the team been received up in Port Angeles?
It's been received really well. I spent the first 2 years, 15 and 16, we kept a team in Kitsap. And I've enjoyed the Kitsap area. I knew going into it from the previous owners that it was going to be a difficult market because we lost a third of our fans when the Mariners played and a third
Oh,
of our
okay.
fans when the Rainiers played. So the proximity to the pro teams that were bigger was the killer.
Okay.
And so I knew how difficult that was. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to move the team immediately either. I needed to find the right market, the right home for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I searched all over the place, and so I knew that the team would be received well in Port Angeles when, as I'd done my research, um, set up all the dominoes. It was surprising to some people how quickly we were received, but I had spent 2 years, in different areas, but setting up the dominoes so much I knocked them over. They kind of fell, and
NFL.
so been received really well. It's been a great community. It's the perfect small market for a West Coast league. Obviously we can do the Victorias and the Portlands, but you need the Port Angeles and the Wenatchees.
Or Edmonton. You overlooked Edmonton.
They're a monster city too. Yeah,
that city's bigger than Seattle in population.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I mean,
this league is in some pretty impressive places.
It absolutely is. Yeah. And as I've gotten to know a little bit more about the league, the Edmonton one though, to me is like that. It's just like, wow.
Impressive ownership group too. Overall in this league, so I was in this league when it first started, and there were some really neat people that started the teams, and there was teams that came from the Pacific International League. So some of these teams have been around for a long time, and a lot of these markets used to be Northwest League. So they've been in affiliated, unaffiliated, they've been kind of all over the map. But as things have become more streamlined, the West Coast League made sense to be formed, and they did a really good structure of it. And those guys and gals were great, that started the league. But what's really neat is how it's progressed. And as new people have bought in teams or they've brought in new teams, the boardroom is just it's a pretty amazing place. It's a really impressive group of people.
So the communities accepted the team. And so you're probably drawing from what? Port Angeles, Forks, Sequim, Port Townsend?
Yeah, Port Angeles, Sequim, Port Townsend, Chimacum, Quilcene, some of the smaller towns. We probably get more from Paulsbo than Port
Really?
Townsend,
Okay.
because of the fact that it's not that bad to get from here from Paulsbo, and we had the kids at Blue Jackets, and so we do see some Blue Jacket jerseys in the crowd every once in a while, and they're usually from Paulsbo. Port Townsend is more of an art community, and they don't have a huge sports
Okay.
following. But I'm trying to change that. But I've been working with their little leagues, and that's my way to solve that problem, is get more kids participating, and they have a big increase of kids playing now.
Okay. That's good. I want the sport to continue to, I want it to regain some of its popularity. How's that? Just,
Yeah, well, it's cyclical. Some of
yeah.
it's cyclical. All team sports right now are losing participants. Um, and some of it is fine. As long as kids are being active and people are being active, it's fine. There are some life things that baseball teaches that other sports don't, and each one has their own unique things that they teach. But I think a kid being introduced to baseball or softball at some point in their life is an important thing. You got to learn it. It just really applies to life. Overcoming failure, and
Well,
it's huge.
yeah, if you hit 333, you'd be in the Hall of Fame guaranteed. So a third,
Right.
if you were successful a third of the time, you're a Hall of Famer.
Right.
I mean, what's his name from the Mariners last year? Kelnick.
Yeah.
That kid comes up with such expectations that he was going to be the next superstar, and
Right.
he just had a miserable run for a while.
Mental.
And
it's the mental part.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see him come back this year and hopefully reach his talent level. Couple of questions. So as I'm still trying to get my feet around me on the league, do you guys have a rival? Is there a rival team that you have?
Well, Victoria.
Okay.
We're 17 miles from home plate to home plate.
Okay.
14 miles is across the water. So we're our park is a mile from, where the boat comes off, and they're, 2.
Okay.
So yeah, we go over there and we have a mob of people. We don't even take a bus over. We walk on the boat. We walk to the park,
Okay.
and a bunch of our town follows us, and it's awesome. It's like the Sounders going up the mall to, the stadium. Like soccer,
Okay.
it's like that. It's fun.
Okay.
When they come here, they don't do that. All their fans go to our golf courses and fill up all of our golf courses. You can't go golfing when they're here. And then they show up about the second or third inning, half cropped, and it's awesome too. And they're so friendly. Victoria has been a huge help to us when we first came in. Jim Swanson has been over here and helped me work with the city, and was a great representative. And I go over there, visit often. They have, we're totally, some things don't apply that they do in Victoria because of the size of the city, but there are things that I can adapt, and there's ideas that I've had that they've adapted. And that's one thing that we're competitive is all get out on the field, but when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to your market, that's your market. And that's, you rather see them be strong than
Mm-hmm.
to knock them down. So there's a lot more communication and working together than I think people would think, because none of us have written the book on it, like, and this is how it has to be. um, Especially even now with the people that are in there, it's a lot more working together than I think people would
Would
imagine.
imagine. Okay.
Yeah, but everybody in the league has a rivalry with Corvallis. Just,
So for the
everybody.
listeners that may not know why, can you elaborate on why you made that statement?
Well, I mean, they're the Yankees and the Celtics and the Lakers, and like any dynasty team combined into one. Um, they were part of the founding of the league. They were the Aloha Knights, and now obviously the Corvallis Knights. Knights as in Phil Knight and Penny Knight. Um, they play at Oregon State, which is one of the best college programs in the nation. Um, they they run a first class operation, no question. Um, I mean, their bus is nicer than the rest of the buses combined in the league, but I don't knock them for that. They run a great organization. They've had great coaches, great staff, a great president and Dan Siegel. Um, they they do everything correctly, and they're a model, and they win. Um, and but for a small town, every place wants to beat the team that has won we've had 16 championships, and I think they've won like 9 of them. So
Okay.
it's over half.
Over half.
Yeah, I wish I could pull the exact number out, but the smaller markets want a piece of them more than anybody,
Sure.
because they do come in with. I'm not saying that anything wrong with it, but they're cocky.
Some bravado, if you will.
Absolutely are. And most teams do that, but they have a different air about them. So when they roll in a town like Port Angeles, even if you're not a big baseball fan, the hair on the back of your neck kind of stands up, and you're like, all right, let's go. But yeah, they're a good model. They do it well. They do it classy. But yeah, I mean, a team wins that often. And no, I don't want parity. People talk about parity. No, if they're the standard, the gold standard, I want them in my league. I want to achieve that.
Well, it's okay. We'll keep it with baseball. The Yankees, the dreaded Yankees. You either love them or you hate them, but they're great for the sport.
They are.
You need a villain, even if it's a villain doesn't have to be a bad guy per se. You just need that team to put a target on their back and go, we're going to beat them.
Yep.
Those, and then they respond by going, and we're going to go get this player.
Yeah. They're like, good luck.
Yeah.
And
we're going to up our game. So I think from a competitive standpoint, we all it gets disheartening if you're a Mariners fan and you haven't gone to the playoffs in a number of, but that's not because of the Yankees.
Yeah. Life's not always fair.
Right. And it's not, the Yankees aren't the reason the Seattle Mariners haven't gone to the playoffs.
No.
I mean,
they may have eliminated them from it, but they're not the reason.
They're not the reason. So Corvallis, and no, we joke on the show that we don't talk about Oregon, but we have to bring them up.
Yeah.
What let's go this way. So for people that are listening to this that don't understand the league, how do the teams go about obtaining players for the season?
So I've done all parts of this. Your first contact is your colleges or your scouts that you're connected to, and you go to say we'll use the Mariners for example, and the University of Washington. They'll say, okay, here's the guys that I would look at the University of Washington, or Washington says, here's our prospects and here's the teams that are on them. So you can cross check them, and then you kind of expand that, and it gives you a base of a roster, and then you go to colleges that you know, but maybe you don't know the scout in that area, and you cross-reference that way, and maybe you go to some scouts that are referencing colleges that you don't know, but at least you have eyes on it and a recommendation, and then you have a base of a roster, and then you also would have some players that are returning, um, from before, and now you have a pretty good roster. Now you're looking for specific things. I need more left-handed pitching. I need more right-handed bats in the outfield, and that's usually when you need to go put eyes on people, and or find somebody in the area or in their league that can put eyes on for them. If you like really trust somebody and you have a long history with them, you could ask them. They know what you're looking for, and they could report back. But yeah, there's times where you have to, you may get down to the real end and you're looking for a shortstop that swings from the left side, and you get some recommendations through people you're not that connected to in Southern California. Well, you got to go take a trip and go see, or send somebody that can.
So these are all college kids.
Correct.
And
yep.
So typically what, 18 to 20?
Our average age is about 19 and 11 months. They were almost 20 years old.
Almost 20.
I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, you get players sometimes up to 22, sometimes 18. But you're only allowed, so many younger players. But if somebody is much older, if they're 21, 22, then they're already draft eligible, and if they're really to that level, they'd be signed and gone.
So these are players that are not draft eligible. Is that
correct?
No.
Yes, a lot of them are draft eligible. Depends on what level they go to. It's confusing, but if you go to a 4-year school, you cannot be drafted until you're 21 or you finish your junior year of college.
Okay.
If you go to community college, you're draft eligible immediately.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that's why community college baseball is actually, like, when I was at Green River, Trey Simmons, who a University of Washington, that really good basketball team, he played at Green River and he put in like 50 a night. It was ridiculous. Like, and he was the sixth man at that Washington team, which was a good team, really good team. But I mean, he was unstoppable. We had 8 Division I players on our baseball team. Okay. I mean, so give you an idea. I mean, and we weren't the only one. Lower Columbia, all of them. So because the guys are draft eligible. So, yeah, you can get some pretty obscure colleges when you're trying to find, a power hitting right fielder, and you end up in the middle of Oklahoma, that you don't know the coaching staff or anything, but the kid's a prospect. So different.
So the kids come to, in your case, Port Angeles, and they're staying with host families.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And my understanding is that the league tries to emulate a professional baseball travel arrangements and all that, like road trips, and kind of to help introduce the concept of how Major League Baseball or minor league baseball is structured.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we literally are the same as a, short season A schedule. Like, it's no joke. 6 days a week. Mondays are off. Games are at consistent times. Workouts during the day. Trainers. Pre-workouts, like post-game meals. And most minor leaguers at that age also are with host families too.
Okay. Yeah. Are the kids paid to play, or because they're college athletes, are they?
They're not allowed to be paid,
Okay.
but we can take care of everything for them. So
Right.
meals at the field, travel. Obviously with the host family, we travel on a bus, uh,
A
hotels, all
hotel,
that
if
kind of stuff. Yeah,
yeah, okay,
yeah. A kid doesn't have to have any money in his pocket once they get here.
okay.
Yeah.
For the lefties, where's the most obscure place you pulled a player from, in your opinion, so far?
Oh my goodness. I mean, we've had players from Australia, from South Africa, Taiwan, Japan.
All right, let me interrupt you. How are you getting eyes on kids in South Africa and Australia? I mean, you're not flying to, are you? You're not traveling to go see these kids in person.
Most of the time, those ones have gotten into the American system, collegiate system
Okay.
of some
Okay.
sort. They come through. There's a few places, I mean, that randomly you can find a kid that's, that shows up because of an exchange program or one of those deals. But there's a few places that have in the country that have, ties in those areas. Um,
Okay.
the one that I've gotten some really good international players, it's kind of an odd one, but um, New Mexico Military Institute gets players from all over the world. And
I can't
and
imagine why the New Mexico Military Institute would be a
it's a junior college.
prospect hotbed.
It's a
Okay. Oh, it's a junior college.
it's a
Okay.
junior college, and they recruit probably kids that eventually could be going into their military system
Okay.
for those countries.
Okay.
And that's why they've left their system and come to the United States. But I mean, obscure. I mean, some of these guys are, it's from all over the place. But I did have a player named Lawson Hips that was from Booger Hollow in Arkansas. So that's probably the most obscure. I'm like, how big? How big? He was such a funny kid, but he's like, I was like, how big is Booger Hollow? And he goes, 7 people and a coon dog.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
And he played at Arkansas State,
Arkansas
and
State.
he played for me in Kitsap. But man, that kid was a riot.
So, why do the colleges want the players to play in the West Coast League?
Well, it's not only the colleges; the scouts want them to, and they need to. If they really have the desire to move up the levels, you need to know what 120 games feels like.
Mm-hmm.
That's your college season and our season combined.
Right.
The wear and tear of the body. Um, it's kind of where you start to see you guys get separated a little bit. Um,
Okay.
because not all bodies can hold that, can continue to perform on that length of time. Baseball is a weird game compared to other ones, but it applies to life, in my opinion. You've heard that a few times now, but it's a marathon. It's a marathon of a season, right?
Right.
But that marathon is ran in sprints,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you sprint, like obviously it's a tax on your body, and a marathon is tax on your body. Imagine running a marathon of sprints, and that's what it is. And not every physical body can withstand that. So when you see performance dropping, or you see who can maintain that, it's significant.
Has anyone since you've owned the team, has anyone made it to the major leagues?
I have multiple players that were in the Kitsap system that are in the major leagues, and we've been 5 years in Port Angeles, and we have 3 AAA guys right now, and
Okay.
12 that are marching up the system. So I mean, you see your top people can be in the show in like 2 or 3 years, um,
Okay.
but 5 is kind of like your like standard or average. Those 3 kids that are in AAA right now, I mean, they could have been in the 3-year deal, and right now they're on their fourth.
Okay.
So um, it's but yeah, it takes a little time. But yeah, when you move to a new market, you don't get the guys that are going to make it in 3 years right away. it
You have
takes,
to kind of
you can start over.
establish yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though the team came from somewhere else, you still different mindset for people, of
Yeah.
where they're sending them, and they don't necessarily want to send that prospect because what is their living situation? What is the training situation? What is so it takes a couple years, but if you go back through the Kitsap time, yeah, there's a lot.
Okay.
This league has quite a few major leaguers.
Yeah, there's been, there's 2 Mariners that I know of that are been in the league.
Well, actually, the last spring roster I looked at, they had 5.
5. Okay.
Five,
So,
and the Giants had 5.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so with the 2020 Cy Young Award winner who played at Cowlitz, played Longview.
Really?
Yeah, so it's the 2 years ago, we had the first and third drafted, in the draft was the first pick and the third pick were West Coast League players.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. All right. So if somebody comes to Port Angeles, they're going to check out a game. We're going to paint you a scenario and I want you to fill it in for us.
Okay.
So let's say somebody from Tacoma decides, hey, I want to drive up to the peninsula and I want to check out a Port Angeles Lefties game. We're going to make a weekend of it.
Okay.
What should they do besides the Lefties game?
Make reservations early. Because this town is so full in the summertime. And if you don't make reservations early, you may get up here and have nowhere to stay.
To sleep.
And that would be an
Okay.
issue. But
Right.
yes, I would make plans early. And you can roll right up to the park, or you can go online to get tickets.
Okay. And what do tickets cost? What are tickets for a Lefties game?
$5 for the general admission,
Okay.
$15 for the baseline seats, and $20 behind home. And it's a pretty good deal. For $5, people go down to the on-field beer garden, especially on Tuesdays, and drink $2 Rainiers, and pretty cheap night, and they have a good time.
Pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, it's not bad. Most hotels in our area are walking distance.
Okay.
So if someone came from the outside, I'd tell them, walk to the field, walk home after.
Right.
It's right. We're 4 blocks, and basically you're 2 blocks from the water, so you could walk down 2 blocks and walk on the water all the way home to the hotel. Yeah.
So what else is in Port Angeles for people to do? Because we're about Washington State. Let's talk about town.
Well, Hurricane Ridge is obviously a huge place for tourists to come. Lake Crescent, Lake Sutherland, Salt Creek. There is just like the Olympic National Park. Everything is there. You're not far from Salduck. We have Edda's Hook. We have the Dungeon of Spit. And that's just stuff off the top of my head.
Right.
I grew up, was born in the Northwest, and there's just always been this like pretty picture around us as you it's just some unbelievable views and things to do in Washington. Port Angeles is like living in the picture. It's like you cannot. It's 360. The mountains are snow covered till almost July, and they hover over the top of you, and the water is like looking at it right now from my front room. You pretty much there's nowhere to turn without having like, oh my goodness, look at that.
So I'm going to ask a question that seems glaringly obvious, but how do you like living in Port Angeles?
It's been great. We came from a city, and so I think with my boys and my wife, it was a little getting used to, but I was born in Aberdeen and knew small town, and lived in Olympia, lived in other places. It took a little bit of getting used to. It's different. There is difference in a small town.
Sure.
Especially, having that conversation with my wife about, someone coming and asking her about horses or whatever. And she wanted to know what the angle was. What's the angle? And I'm like, well, we're not in the city. She just literally wanted to talk to you about that. She doesn't need anything from you. That's different, right? So getting used to those things and be able to take them at face value because you see them every day. I had experienced that and none of them had. So, but I think they really enjoy it. And it's almost like being back 30 years in time.
Yeah.
They, the newspaper, radio are still, sources of information. People are very involved in politics here. It's the last bellwether state or city.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no joke when they do politics stuff. The women's league has the interviews, and the business association does, and you go to them and you listen to what
Okay.
people have to say. And you don't necessarily vote Republican, Democrat. You listen to the candidate, the person, and what they're talking about, and so that's different. And you feel comfortable letting your kids like walk and
Mm-hmm.
around. And I know how to navigate the system. You make a couple phone calls and find out, oh, where are my kids at? And someone goes, well, I think I heard them this way. And then, they call the Thompsons, and they're like, yeah, they're down on 6th Street between here and here. And now that I have a son that's old enough to drive, it's the same thing. I'm like, if you ever see the Prius doing something stupid, call me. And they would,
Right.
And that's, you don't get that in
A big city.
You don't get it in a big city ever.
Do your kids go, does the family go to the games?
Yes.
Are your kids into it?
They are working.
Okay.
So they play baseball in the summer, and
Okay.
then when they're not playing baseball, they're at the park working. They're doing something. So
Okay.
my oldest son is now kind of the jack of all trades. Like he's helped in the press box, he's helped in concessions and tickets and like all that stuff. My wife, who's a director of finance for a school district, a pretty powerful job, shows up and helps in the concession stand. My youngest son gets foul balls. He helps with merch. He helps with different things. But if he has any downtime, he's a little entrepreneur. He hustles the opposing team's bullpen. And what he does is he sells them concession food, because they're not supposed to go in the concession line with the fans, for a markup. And he's made this little team of people that come with him, his little buddies, and they also hustle foul balls out of kids. They're like, I'll get you an autographed ball. So he comes in and takes like BP balls and asks a player, hey, sign this for me, please. And then he takes the baseball and then takes the game ball back from the kid, because he knows how much a game ball is worth.
Well, how much does a game ball cost?
About $5.
Okay. And how many do you go through in a game on average?
3 dozen.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's,
wow.
It's about $5. It's part of the deal. We know it's going to be a loss when they go out.
Sure.
But,
right.
And I never explain this to my son. He just knows what they're worth. And so he would rather change out a BP ball.
Well, okay. So what's a BP ball cost?
Maybe $1.50.
Okay. He's a smart. How old is your son?
He's 12.
He's a smart kid.
Yeah. So
I love the hustle for the bullpen hustle.
Oh yeah.
I'm surprised hopefully he won't listen to this, but I'm surprised he hasn't asked you for a discount at the concession stand so he can make even more money.
Well, he's got a little he doesn't need that much money, but hot dogs for $3 and he sells them for $5. He's doing pretty well.
Yeah, but think about it. If he could get them from you for $2.50, he's making an extra 50 cents.
Oh no, I know. Oh, he tries to negotiate with me all the time. He takes really good pictures, good pictures, and because he's running around the park and he knows where to be, and he also knows what's probably going to happen because he's seen so much baseball at his age.
Right.
So he takes like unbelievable photographs, and I was like, oh hey, send me that to me, 50 cents every time. Like, every picture he sends me, he wants 50 cents. So he trust me, he knows how to negotiate.
That's awesome.
Or he won't send them to me.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, let's wrap this up with a couple of questions. So where can people find out more about the Lefties? And yeah.
Leftiesbaseball.com. And then social media at Lefties Baseball. Facebook is probably, and Instagram are probably the quickest up to date if something is going quickly. But leftiesbaseball.com is ticket schedule, and everything funnels back to that.
Do you guys have anything on the schedule this year? Big promotion thing? Any special nights? Any big events like that?
We always do have a ton of
Okay.
stuff. I mean, we just did pitch and stitch. We wrapped that up yesterday, so that'll be a
Pitch it.
yeah. We're gonna have 100 knitters in the park on the party deck. But yeah, no, we have tons of different stuff. You remember when there's no jumbotron, there's no video board. Um, the fans are the entertainment, and so that
Right.
that usually is like the part that people don't realize that not been to this level before. That we have the
Hmm.
entertainment value. It's just our fans need to participate. So the T-Rex running is a great one. Everybody loves that. And wiener dog races has been huge last year. We
Okay.
did 5 wiener dog races and people went nuts. Our crowd was 20% larger when we did wiener dog races. They just came for the wiener dogs. They're hilarious though. Um, and so there that we have you name it, shooting shirts into the crowd and um, one Rudd orthodontic in town. He's the only orthodontist left in town. Takes all the dentist's patients to a game, so like 3,000 people. It's pretty awesome. And then he throws out candy to their, you know, and last 2 years ago, or was it in 2019, he brought in so many baseball cupcakes. It was ridiculous. Like 3,000 of them, and enough that like we had to. I just said time in the game. I wasn't coaching at that time. I went out and said, hey, to the umpire. It was a non-league game. I'm like, can you give us 5 minutes, please? And he's like, okay. And I went to the whole team and was like, we can't. The staff can't get these cupcakes out. We need your help. And so they just and the thing was is no one had a chance to videotape it because we were all trying to get the cupcakes out. Everybody was working. But the picture in my mind of having 30 baseball players chucking thousands of baseball cupcakes into the sea of people, um, it was absolutely hilarious. And that's
Oh
the
my
kind of
God.
stuff that you don't get to see. And one that this is in our park, but an example of that was Victoria. One time I was in Victoria and they had a yoga class going, and at the end of
Okay.
the before the game, and at the end of it, uh, the guy put on some like music, like dance music, and all these people that were doing yoga just started dancing on the infield, and everybody's trying to get warmed up, and nobody could get them off the field. Like they couldn't, like the guy, just weren't listening, and it was hilarious and um, something that people will remember forever. They didn't remember who won the game. We won that game, by the way, but they don't remember who won the game. They'll just remember I went to a baseball game and a yoga thing was going on and a dance party broke out and they couldn't get them off the field. They'll remember it, and
Yeah, they absolutely will.
that stuff is exciting. Finally, the owner went down and literally unplugged it, and that's what stopped it. I watched him go finally like unplug the thing, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you don't see at a Mariners game.
No, no, you
And
don't.
there's neat things there, but there's neat things in the small markets too.
Absolutely. I do have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
Approximately, what's the stadium called? What's your stadium's name, and what's the capacity?
It's Civic Field. It's located 4 blocks from downtown, right off the strip. A lot of rooftops around it. It was built in the '60s. Its capacity is about 5,000, but for baseball, it's about 3,000.
Okay.
We've been above 3,000, but our ticketing system is cut off at that number. So the times that we go above 3,000, it's a guesstimate. Um,
Okay.
you know, um, and it's really a beautiful park. John Stanton came because he owns some teams in this league. He came to our park and sat behind home plate, and um, he told us that was the best backdrop in all of baseball. This is a guy that owns a major league team. This is a guy that has seen them all, and our parks director and our city manager like floated and when they walked away after he told them that. So Hurricane Ridge, when you're behind home plate, is the backdrop.
Oh,
so the whole hillside and Hurricane Ridge. And then if you're standing on the field, the backdrop is the Strait of Juan de Fuca.
That can be distracting.
Yeah, the sunsets and the alpenglow from the
Oh,
mountains. You have the big, the pink glow with the snow-covered mountains as the sun goes down in the summer. Pretty unreal. I can't even take
that's
pictures
very
to justify it.
okay. I totally should have asked you this question at the very beginning of the conversation. But as the owner, what's your day to day? What do you do day to day?
What don't I do?
Okay.
Usually, pre-setting up all the stuff that's going on, pre-setting up
Mm-hmm.
the events for the day. If we're going to have pizza box races and all that kind of stuff, and making sure that stuff is all coordinated. That we have the groups that are coming and making sure that things are taken care of. I'm not necessarily doing the setup for it, but making sure that the pieces are in place.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with the coaching staff. If there's something needed, getting ready for a travel trip, dealing with the bus driver because I own the buses, and making sure that that we're things are taken care of there. Delivery of beer. I'm usually the one that's taking kegs off, even though I have other people because I physically can do it, and a lot of times I don't want to put other people in that position. I'm the one
Okay.
that's part of building it. I know where it's supposed to go, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
want someone to so. And then basically, early in the season, there's a lot of teaching people how to do things. Even if they've done it before, they haven't done it in a year. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
365 kind of job,
Right.
or updating them on the new things that are in place. And
Okay.
then as the season goes on, the workload on me actually really diminishes because they know what you can write something on the board and they know what it means. Um,
Gotcha.
and things get put in places better and they understand the systems. And then, yeah, usually by like week 2 or 3, it's really much easier on me. By the end of the season, I have a lot of time, but I have other businesses going too. We have mobile bars. I have a restaurant. So there's about a good month in there that they just need to leave me alone, and I'm just concentrating on the baseball team. But other than that, um, I'm back with all of them and kind of overseeing all of them.
Okay. If you could meet one baseball player, past or present, who would you want to meet?
Someone I've never met before.
Yeah, someone you've never met. So, dead or alive, past or present. It doesn't.
Um, I think Babe Ruth would be somebody to ask questions of, um, but not probably the standard questions. I think it
Oh,
would be interesting.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
that would, but probably the person I'd like to meet most would be Branch Rickey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just for if it was just meet anybody, talk about baseball, but I just don't think for Babe Ruth. I mean, like the person was extremely talented and troubled and all over the map, and
Mm-hmm.
but it would be interesting to get his take. But if I wanted more in depth, which is I would want to be like a Branch Rickey, somebody that's
Okay.
been or a Connie Mack, been on
Mm-hmm.
the field, been in management, been ownership. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Al Davis, not in baseball, but same
At
thing.
football, yeah.
Played,
What
coached,
about
owned.
what's his name? He just escaped me. Finley, Charlie Finley.
Yeah, I mean any of those kind of people. It's just that's the ones that have been through multiple aspects of it. They see it from different angles.
Sure.
That would
Okay.
be, that would be interesting to me.
Okay. What do you hope the next couple of years? I asked 2 to 5. I know 5 is hard to predict in the future, but what do you hope to see for the Lefties in the next couple of years? Got any short, on the horizon goals, changes, things you want?
Well, I do want to get a video board out there. not because I want to have the jumbotron and take away from the fan experience, but because I think that the facility needs it, for the high school sports, for community sports, for ourselves. I think that that's a big deal. Um, what we're personally working on is targeted group ticket sales. We get these massive groups that come in, like the orthodontist and those kind of things. But that's one thing that I know that I've lacked at since I've been here, because there's only so many things you can do, and
Sure.
people still. It's a small town, and I knew they would show up if we communicated with them. But there's a difference between doing that and targeting. Um, like, we want the hospital workers here on this day. We want the teachers here on this day, and that's
Okay.
that's really what my GM is focusing on,
Okay.
is organizing that for them. Do the teachers still come? They do. And do the hospital workers still come? They do. But I'd like them to come on. We know they're coming on Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
We know that
Right.
teachers are coming on this date. We know that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Interfor or Lakeside Industries are coming on these dates, rather than them coming in small little groups. They can still come in those small little groups, and we want that. But we have some pretty big companies up here that are based in Port Angeles, and um, that's something that I just have not had time for, or the right person to do it. Now I do.
Okay. All right. My get out of jail free card question is always, what didn't I ask you that I should have?
Oh, well, I'm pretty much an open book, so you could have asked anything. I, I had to figure out a way to at least give you my opinion on it. But
Okay.
the season probably when it starts and finishes.
Okay.
It starts at the end of May, and it finishes on. So this year we'll start on Labor Day weekend. So Memorial weekend, because we'll play a non-league series, which we have a couple non-league series. It's kind of a rare thing, but everybody loves them because it's a way to see the team before the games count. And there's the
Mm-hmm.
old semi-pro teams that are around in Seattle still, and so you bring
Mm-hmm.
them over and you play them. So we'll do that right before the season and play a series there, and the guys get to know each other, and then we'll finish up like August 14th, and with postseason to be like August 21st. So it's a pretty tight schedule. I mean, it's what,
Mm-hmm.
8 days off total all summer.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
the question that most people do ask me that you didn't ask is, how much do they practice before they get there?
Well, I was just going to ask, because you said that. Thank you for that. How early are they getting to Port Angeles?
So our first
I
game
mean,
our first game is on the 28th, and
okay.
I would say the earliest arrivals will be the 26th.
Wow. So they're not getting really there's no quote unquote spring training for
No,
this.
no,
Oh,
they come
okay.
directly to us,
Okay.
and we'll have players show up all the way till middle of June.
Okay.
Yep. So,
So how much are they practicing then on game day and all that?
center day at 10 o'clock, they'll do like an early work session. We'll go hit the weight room, um, have a few hours off in the afternoon, and then they'll have another early work session. So the workout, I shouldn't say the first one is more of a workout, like they need to be there. Early work is more optional,
Mm-hmm.
or required, depending on, hey, I'm telling you tomorrow to go to early work because you need to work on this. Um,
Right.
and then batting practice starts at 4:15. Um, Opposing team hits at 5:15, and we play at 6:30. So you can
Okay.
kind of see the day. You get up at 9 o'clock, you eat your food, do your workout, go lift. You got a little break for a few hours, um, do your workout. You got a break for about an hour, while the other team, does their stuff, and then you play at 6:30, and you're probably up until 2 in the morning. Repeat. That's
Over and over again.
Yeah, a lot. 64 times in 70 days or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to actually having a small part in the league this year, at least at the home games in Wenatchee. So that'll be kind of interesting for me. So I hope I can hold up that pace. I don't know.
You'll be
It'll
fine.
be fun.
It's a blast, and you also get advantage of like being off when they go on the road.
Right. Yeah.
Unless you're going to go on the road, and that's different.
That hasn't been discussed, so I do not believe I'm going on the road.
There are,
but the
broadcasters do.
Well, the thing is, though, is that in all seriousness, because of the whole Explore Washington State piece, I'd actually like to come and see games at your ballpark.
Yep.
And go to Walla Walla or Yakima or Richland.
I think it's valuable for every staff to do that, at least go see another market. And you learn some things. I mean, Wenatchee is actually a good example because the team with the second most titles is Wenatchee.
Okay.
They have proven the small market, model, if you will, of to win. And that was a team. I think they've won like 4 of the championship. Yeah. So they're it is doable in a small market. It's exactly their model of what they used to do is what I'm trying to do here.
Okay.
Yeah. So and you need to learn that, and you don't know that unless you go there. You can see the results at the end, but what are they doing? And you need to go and see for your own eyes. And I think you can learn from every park something. There's a difference between Wenatchee and Port Angeles, but there's similarities. Mm-hmm. I found a lot of things to apply from Walla Walla. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of things I can apply from Walla Walla. So it's going to those places and seeing it for your own eyes and finding out what your style is, and compared to what theirs is and what applies.
Right. No, I agree. And it's really unfortunate to have to sit and watch a baseball game during the summer. I mean, it's just hard work. No fun there at all.
Well, I love doing it. Think about those parks you talked about. I mean, they're beautiful. Those are cool towns, Wenatchee and Walla Walla, and and going up into Canada, Kelowna, Kamloops. Mm-hmm. Those are really. Kelowna's a beautiful town. I would have never visited Kelowna if it wasn't for baseball.
I've never been there. So
it's amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes, thank you.
I wish you and the Lefties success this season, except for against Wenatchee. No, just kidding. Yeah. I just want the entire league to continue to grow and expand the awareness of baseball in our region. I think it's great for everybody.
I do too. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.